Today, I am so very excited to welcome a practitioner by the name of Kerry Jenkins, who says she's not certified in trauma or a survivor, but from everything I know about Kerry, she's actually one of the most well practiced in helping others who actually are trauma survivors. And so, Kerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to have people like you out there in the world that are doing the kind of things that you do in your practice. We need people like you. And because you've come to us from one of our very trusted sources who really was excited to have you share today, I would just like to ask you to explain what is a functional medicine practitioner so that those who don't know, because I really was not that aware of what that truly meant. So could you just explain to our audience what you do?
Absolutely. I would thoroughly enjoy that. So, functional and integrative medicine was not something that was on my radar initially either. So, it's essentially it we as practitioners are trained to integrate the entire human mind, body, and spirit. And when you can take the time and do that, it is a game changer in somebody's journey back towards health, right? So, we as functional medicine practitioners, we really are excellent listeners. We are dedicating time to our patient visits to allow our patients to tell their story. And that serves so many purposes, right? It allows them to be validated, to be heard, to be seen, to be recognized. Every single human's journey is different. Every path is different. And, so many people come to us having experienced some sort of trauma in their life. I will say that 9.5 out of every 10 people that I see in my practice have experienced some sort of trauma to different varying degrees, right? So,
Right.
acknowledging that, holding space for them, zipping the lip and allowing them to speak and share their story, validating their fears, their concerns, their hopes, their joys, their goals, holding that space for them. I really feel that there's so much power in that first visit in allowing somebody to feel comfortable and to share a little bit and become vulnerable and understand that, we're here as a team to facilitate your healing process.
That's really a beautiful way of saying that you actually listen uh, fully and that you are concerned about the entire human being, the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I too am certainly one that feels that we don't get listened to really, truly, hardly ever in our lives. And I know that practicing being a better listener, a more empathetic listener, somebody who can let the person talk and let them feel what they feel and not try to fix or correct them, or to shut them down, really, a lot of times because people realize when they're not being heard, not being listened to, is like the first step, at least for me, it was on my healing journey. So to me, the way that you explain that is just so beautiful and so vital to healing from trauma. And yes, I believe most people have experienced some kind of trauma, like you said, in various degrees, but because our purpose and our mission of this podcast and of our foundation and our online community, Thrivivors, is for sexual abuse survivors to find their voice, to find a safe space. That is what you're talking about. You provide that in a big way. So thank you for that, first of all, and that definition, for everybody to know. If you're seeking out a functional practitioner, where do you look? Is that listed in that way? Like, can you look that up in the phone book?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. Google is an easy way. You can just get on Google and put functional medicine practitioner near me, and there will be a list of practitioners that come up. But what I often refer people to is there's a worldwide organization called the Institute for Functional Medicine, and it's abbreviated IFM. And their website is www.ifm.org. And the Institute for Functional Medicine is the educational body that I received my functional medicine training through. And they have on their website, at the very top right corner of their website, there's a button that says Locate a Practitioner Near Me, where you can enter your zip code and you can choose a certain mile radius, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever, different mile
Yeah.
radius. And then you click enter, and all the practitioners that have started their functional medicine education, or those practitioners that have gone all the way and taken their certification through the Institute for Functional Medicine, will be listed, and it will give you their name, their website, their address, their phone number, what they specialize in, because all of us practitioners come to this type of medicine from varying backgrounds, right? So there are naturopathic physicians, there's medical doctors, there's DOs, there's psychologists, there's pediatricians, there's licensed mental health counselors, there's nutritionists, there's, all these amazing people that have amazing experience and strengths.
Wow.
And you're able to go through and look at each person's individualized profile and decide who would be the best fit for me.
Right. Okay. So that's really good to know that I know that you graduated from Nova Southeastern University
Yes.
and you did get a master's degree as a physician's assistant.
Mhm.
And so you studied all of these various things from the point of a very intensive training and background. So you come to us with, knowledge, and there is a science I know behind healing. And one of those things that I think is so interesting about what you do is that when you have been practicing, in the medical field, and that you also you did some aesthetic dermatology
Okay.
also.
No one.
I understand. Is it interesting to find how the physical, because you say mind, spirit, and body, how the physical um, body is transformed when the spirit and the mind are transforming? Do you see that?
The connection is fierce. It's absolutely amazing. Our experience on a day-to-day experience on this planet can either come from one area of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxed state, or you can come through the world through the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight mechanism, right? So, for anybody who has suffered any type of trauma, they're more leaning towards that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight nervous system. And the mind body connection is so incredibly strong that the people that are living in that fight or flight nervous system response 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks out of the month, 12 months out of the year, they're manifesting with disease. And that's the mind body connection right there. That's the evidence and the proof. Those are the people that are really, really struggling with health conditions.
Wow. So you kind of discovered your passion here in this type of, you know, journey in medicine, body, because we often feel like all of those things are dealt with separately, and I agree with you. Like there is such a connection that if we don't deal with all of them as a cohesive body, I mean, you can't separate, at least not yet. We don't know how to separate the soul or the spirit from the mind. We don't know how to see that separately from the body. I mean, they are connected, obviously. So you talk about in your bio that you had a family member who was suffering from some chronic disease or digestive problems. Can you tell us about that? How that led you to this understanding in such a big way, because obviously that is what this is, and dealing with all three of these pieces of the human person, you know, is like so important. And I just really see why having a functional medicine practitioner would be like an amazing piece to add to your arsenal of who actually is going to help you through this trauma.
Yeah, 100%. And I really appreciate you bringing that last piece to the front light. We are part of the team, right? I'm not replacing anybody or anything. I'm not replacing a primary care doctor. I'm not replacing your internal medicine physician. I'm not replacing your psychiatrist, psychologist. I am a part of your team that is going to help educate and inspire and empower you to live your best life and to make choices so that you can be on that trajectory towards wellness, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I found it was I have two girls. I'm a mom of two girls. And my youngest daughter, when she was about 12 or 13 years old, was really just consistently complaining of belly issues. She was just uncomfortable. She was having what we call dyspepsia, which just means poor digestion. She would belch like a truck driver. Like she's this little tiny petite human, and she
Yeah.
would belch. And I would look around like there has to be some very large man that just expelled that from their body. And here it is coming from my daughter. And she would say to me consistently, Mom, I just don't feel good. I don't feel good. And I didn't understand what it was that she was experiencing. But I
Yeah.
knew deep down in my soul that if I took her to the pediatrician, they would do some sort of imaging. They would scope her from the top. They would scope her from the bottom. They would prescribe a medication. They would label her with IBS, and we would be sent out the door. Next. And I knew deep down inside that that was not the answer. Doing all of that was not going to further me in helping my child feel better. So I'm going to be honest, for the first 4 to 5 months, I ignored her because I didn't know what to do. But during that time, I was spending a lot of time on my friend, Dr. Google, and I was Googling and I was learning and I was getting, little bits and pieces of information that I was starting to put together. I took time and sat with what I learned, what I was finding, and I kept researching, reading, and listening to podcasts that it slowly opened up this entirely different world to me. And I was so fortunate to find an integrative nutritionist in my community. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. So I scheduled an appointment for her, and it was completely like nothing I had ever done before. It was a completely pay out of pocket cash based appointment. The appointment was for 2.5 hours. The intake paperwork that she sent me to fill out prior to our visit was, holy smokes, I've never seen anything like this before. So thorough.
Wow.
And when we showed up to that appointment, I asked my daughter, hey, listen, I have this idea. What are your thoughts? Are you open to this? And she looked at me and said, yes, I'm willing to try anything. Let's go. So we went. And I'm going to tell you, Jan, when I walked into that practitioner's office, she had floor to ceiling, wall to wall books. We checked in. My
Wow.
daughter sat down on the sofa, and I was like a kid in a freaking candy store. I was pulling books off the shelf. I put them on the coffee table. I whipped out my phone. I was taking pictures of the titles and the authors. And I knew deep down inside that this was going to be monumental. And that visit with that nutritionist was life-changing for me. She was my first mentor. She said, any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. Any books that you want to borrow, I'm willing to lend you. And that opened the door, an entire galaxy. It opened an entire universe to me of integrative and functional medicine. And once you open those doors, you cannot unsee what's behind that.
Wow.
So I dove in head first. I didn't hesitate. I said, this is what my calling is. This is what I was put on this planet to do. When I chose to become a PA, I chose that path because I thought it would give me good work-life balance, allow me to be a mom, allow me to have a family. And it totally did. I would never change. My decision was amazing. But once I decided to jump in and become educated and take courses. And then I got certified through the Institute for Functional Medicine. It was very scary because it's non-traditional. And a lot of people think you're woo-woo and you're a quack and you don't know what you're talking about. But I'll tell you, the tides are changing. People are opening up to this type of care. And I really do believe that this is the future of medicine.
Well, obviously, it works. So when something works and as that gains more and more exposure, which is what we're doing here today, I also believe, yay, exactly. And we want to talk about, your, whisper health, the thing that you have, what you're doing in all of these different ways that really do affect the whole human's health, the mental health, the physical health, the spiritual health, the soul of a person's health is so tied together with all of those. I mean, that's just an amazing story. And was there, without getting, into anything too personal with your daughter, was there anything other than just that she had this condition? Was it tied to any kind of trauma? Did you ever get to that place where you discovered something? Because I know one of the things I want to talk about is how do you help a person? Because you came to us because you helped someone that I love, that we love, that we met that had some health issues. And so how did it turn out for your daughter? Because we all want to know.
Yeah, it turned out amazing. I mean, the 2.5-hour visit was so incredibly enlightening. And I had an epiphany after that visit because the nutritionist mapped out my daughter's entire existence. She wanted to know about my pregnancy. She wanted to know about my delivery of my daughter. She wanted to know everything that happened up until she was 12 years old. She wanted to know how active she was. What does her exercise look like? How well does she sleep? What does she eat? What does she drink? What is she doing for joy? What is her passion? What are you doing to support and, give her the resources to evolve and become an amazing human? So I had an epiphany, not even 12 hours after my daughter was born, she was placed on IV antibiotic. And it was she had a duct obstruction, a salivary duct obstruction in her mouth. I brought her home from the hospital. I'm nursing her, and I noticed the right side of her face is becoming red and warm and inflamed. And I'm like, something is wrong. So we went back to the pediatrician. The pediatrician said, this is no good. Went back to the hospital. She was admitted. She started IV antibiotics. And, that was life-saving. And for that, I am ever so grateful, right? Our medical system is amazing at treating acute conditions, right? The problem is where there's chronic medical conditions. So I'll
Yeah.
circle back to that. But for my daughter, she was put on IV antibiotics, and that saved her life. But it also decimated her gut microbiome. And our gut microbiome is what is really driving the bus on us being healthy or not healthy. If our gut
Okay.
bugs are happy and healthy and thriving and there's a diverse population of them, our health is doing well. If our gut bugs are decimated by repeated antibiotics, by trauma, by chemical exposure, pesticides, plastics, phthalates, all the things, that affects our gut microbiome and that affects our health or our illness. So for me, I had an epiphany of how her birth experience and her first 24 hours of life set her up for what she was experiencing at 12 years old. She was eating
Wow.
gluten, she was eating dairy, and neither of those things worked well in her body. So we eliminated them, and her whole world changed. She was no longer gassy and bloated, and she didn't belch, and she was digesting her food. And when all that works better, you sleep better and you're happier, and it changed everything. So it was incredibly enlightening for me.
Wow. So I think that's interesting that you put trauma in there in the middle of saying, what trauma has done to your gut biome.
100%.
What, please, can you elaborate? Because when we talk mostly about, trauma and surviving trauma and healing from trauma and getting through trauma, we don't often go, oh, and it's also affected my gut biome.
Right. Yeah.
That they're not happy. My whatever you called them.
My little
I love that.
microbes. Yeah.
Yeah, microbes are not happy because trauma which also would mean that the body has responded. As we know, stress we talk about all the time. We talk about stress and how, stress is a killer and stress does this to the body, but we don't often associate that trauma is the highest form of stress
Yes.
that a body goes through.
Yes. Yes. So what happens essentially is that trauma changes how our systems in our body operate on a physiological level. So if we think about that, our endocrine system, which is made up of all of our hormones, our thyroid, our pancreas, our adrenal glands, our sex hormones, that's our endocrine system. Our endocrine system is permanently changed once we've suffered and gone through and experienced trauma. And that's only one system. Our digestive system is forever changed. Our neurological system is forever changed. Everything is forever changed once we have moved through a traumatic experience. So when you think about it from a physiological level, our entire body, we talk about mind, body, spirit, our body is changed physiologically on a cellular level because of trauma.
Wow. It just feels good for somebody to say that. Like, it
Yeah,
feels good to me.
yeah,
It feels good to be seen in a way that is not just, "Oh, it's something in your head. Yeah, you experience this thing, but I get a lot of, "Why do you keep talking about it?" I'm like, "Well, it's not because not that I have ever finished that we ever finish healing. I'm not saying, I'm done with that. I'm just talking about it because I wanna help other people. That's true. I also know that it helps me, but it's nice to hear somebody say it's connected to all of these systems in the body.
yeah,
Trauma actually forever changes all of these systems that are physiological.
yes,
And that to me is like giving hope to people who think there is no hope because they can't wrap their hands around something that happened to them.
right.
It's like that thing that happened to them isn't happening to them now, but it has forever affected their physiological systems. This is why they don't feel good. They don't feel good, in their body. They don't feel good in their mind or their spirit. All of it is connected. And I just love hearing that in a way that can make me go, okay, I can still wrap my hands around what am I doing for my parasympathetic nervous system today? Or what am I doing for my neurological, brain to repair and build new pathways today?
Yes,
And this is what a functional medicine practitioner helps you discover and do.
yes,
Because I know that you helped, our friend, somebody that has basically brought you to us. So if you could tell somebody who's suffering in a, why do I can't sleep, I have nightmares, or I'm just depressed all the time, but I'm not actually having, memories of, doesn't go back to, what happened to me as a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old. It's not necessarily connecting as far as what I can think. I just have these feelings, this stuff that I want to get through and get over. And I'm always like stumped, like, where does a person start?
yeah,
You know?
yeah, it's tricky. So essentially, I try to simplify it so that it's easier to understand. And essentially, the way I understand it is we get stuck. We fall into this rut. And once our body has experienced that level or that sense of danger, right, which is what trauma is, our brains can get stuck in a limbic loop of perpetual motion with that experience, right? And like you said, you're not going back to that 7-year-old self or that 12-year-old self. You're not reliving that trauma. But why am I having insomnia? Why can't I relax? Why am I anxious all the time? It's because when we get stuck in that limbic forward loop, we can no longer access the healing power of that parasympathetic nervous system state. The autonomic nervous system is forever leaning into that sympathetic fight or flight overdrive, and you get stuck there. And when that stuckness happens, that's a very technical term, right? That's stuckness.
Stuckness.
When that
I like it.
stuckness happens, it becomes very, very difficult for a person to break out of that limbic forward feeding cycle. And there are things that can be done to help break that. And that's what a functional and integrative practitioner is trained at doing. That's what trauma-informed therapists are doing, right? It's teaching somebody how to break out of that pattern so that they can rewire their neurology and allow their body to follow their mind. Mind-body connection.
So that's just like, that to me is like a revolutionary thought. Just the way that you, again, explain that. When you find a patient that has now told you their story, you've started from birth or, the whole thing, and you hear that they have, a past traumatic, experience. And for a lot of people, it might be a singular event, but for most of the people that I, am trying to reach, people who have gone through extended, repeated abuse, trafficking, incest, rape of a child, and these things are repeated. They weren't a singular event necessarily. Some are, and that can be very stressful and just as, you know, worthy of treatment as ongoing. But what I find is that the ongoing of the how long it seemed like some of these events in a person's life, in their childhood, teenhood, tweenhood happened, also kind of has a relationship to how much you have to put in to actually heal and do the things that you're talking about. And so when someone meets with you, is it usually there's a game plan that is planned out for 12 weeks, for years? Do you leave it open-ended? How do you, when you realize that this event or these stressors that's affecting this person's health have been extensive, who would you refer to? Who would you put on the team along with yourself for this, survivor
Yeah,
who's
absolutely.
trying to get better?
So I have a network of trauma-informed therapists that I have all of their contact information and I hand out like candy because like you mentioned, we've said most people have suffered some sort of trauma to varying degrees throughout their life. So addressing that is part of their healing journey. So I refer to my trauma-informed therapists all day, every day, because they are the professionals that have had the educational training and know-how and experience to really do the deep work that is required. I am supporting the whole body, mind, body, and spirit, but I'm coming at it more from a physiological standpoint. I'm supporting cellular processes, which then support organ systems, which then supports the whole human. So, to answer your question, how long does it take? I always say it depends. And I'm not trying to not answer the question, but every single person's journey, their path getting to where they are is so unique. And whatever it is they're dealing with at the current day, if they have an autoimmune process that they're working through and they've had trauma, well, now we're talking 8 to 18 months worth of work, right?
Yeah.
It can be a while, but once they get started and the train starts gaining momentum, they start feeling better. And when you start feeling better, everything changes. Your outlook, your mental, emotional, everything is better. So, I don't tell people like, look, it could take 12 to 18 months, but you're not going to feel like crap for 12 to 18 months. Let us get started and get the wheels oiled and get the train moving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that feels very encouraging,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes, especially I've noticed with people who don't have vivid memories or they don't remember, they just know they know something happened, but they can't remember. That seems to be the most elusive where it's like, I want to remember, but I don't want to remember probably. I don't know why I don't remember, but having a memory of something would help me to at least, like, I'm not crazy. That kind of thing where you
Validation.
feel
Yeah.
validation.
Yeah.
So, do you find working with people who are coping with that kind of stress, like not being able to remember, but knowing something happened and that it probably happened over a long, period of time? How do you help somebody like that work through that kind of stress? Because that's stressful when you can't remember.
Yeah, very much so. So again, we start in the same place. We have conversations, and I just start asking questions. How open are you to possibly working with a trauma informed therapist? And if that is too scary and too much for them to digest and process from step number one, okay, that's fine. We have other resources. There are so many amazing online programs that I refer my patients to. So I give them a list and I say, please look and investigate and research all of these options. And I want you to choose one that really resonates with you. And I want you to commit to doing it every single day. So that's a less intimidating way for some people to get started from step number one is just let me sign up for an online program. I can do it from the comfort and safety of my own home on my own time. I don't have to physically go to a group. I don't have to speak one-on-one with a therapist if that feels too uncomfortable for me. So we just meet them where they're at. Where are you and what resources can I share with you to just get you to take the very next baby step forward?
Yeah. So, would you be willing to share some of those online, things that you found? Because we'd love to be able to, share that with some of our listeners, people that I think struggle with finances and a lot of times, as far as I know, insurance is not yet covering, a functional, medical professional. How do you do what we want to do when you don't have the financial resources to do it?
Yeah, so I'm definitely happy to share resources, the online programs that I like, but something that's even more simple than that. Because even the online programs are, a financial investment, right? They're a couple
Yeah.
$100s. And I understand that some people may not be in a place where they can, put that money down towards a program. But there are simple things that we can do every single day that engage the portion of our autonomic nervous system that parasympathetic rest, digest, calm, rejuvenate, and healing. So, the parasympathetic branch of our autonomic nervous system is responsible for that healing and rejuvenation and restoration. So, even if somebody says to me, Carrie, I would love to take this online program, I just can't afford it. Then I'm going to say, okay, here's some exercises that you can do at home several times a day that, again, are going to get you into that parasympathetic resting experience, right? So there's simple exercises like humming. Really, just lightly closing your lips and really humming aggressively. That's going to
Uh-huh.
activate your ventral vagal, your vagus nerve. And that's going to help put you into a parasympathetic nervous system state. You can gargle with water. Take an ounce of water and put it deep in your throat and really aggressively gargle, like really aggressively gargle so your neighbor next door can hear you. That
Okay.
is activating your vagus nerve, which is putting you in that parasympathetic, healing, restorative nervous system state. Singing loudly, turn up the music, have a little dance party, sing your favorite song. That's
That's what
activating,
I do.
yeah, that's activating your vagus nerve. So there's little things even, that you can do at home in the safety of your privacy of your own home that will help you flip that switch and get you into that parasympathetic nervous system state.
So those are great ways that you can cope with stress or, just feeling one way and wanting to change the way that you feel. You got to access, like you said, the vagus nerve. And I know that for sure humming or singing or, dancing and turning the music up is definitely a game changer for me
Yeah.
on any given day. And I'm like, it may sound like this is like well, that's nice for you because you like to sing and dance or whatever, but that won't work for me. And I'm like, but the point is, it's it's not woo woo. It
Oh, no,
actually
it's medicinal. It's medicinal.
it's
And
medicinal.
I
Yes.
prescribe it. I don't just say, "Hey, I would like for you to hum. I would like for you to gargle. I would like for you to sing." No, I put it as a prescription. You will hum 3 times a day your favorite song, a different song each time. I would love for you to gargle twice a day while you're brushing your teeth, right? We work it into their normal activities of daily living. I'm not gonna ask them to gargle at work, but when you're brushing your teeth in your own bathroom, gargle, hum, turn the music on when you're in the shower, sing that song. And that's all easy ways to engage that vagus nerve.
Well, and I think it's also just ways that if we would do them, we would find that things start to shift and change and morph and get better.
Yep.
And I think so often we can, and maybe you can speak to this, we can get into a place of, I'm kind of comfortable with feeling lousy. We get in a place where even if we have these simple things that now have been, you know, medicinally prescribed, we've described and prescribed these things as you would prescribe them and I would describe them in my life that have worked for me. Getting people to do them
Yeah,
why is it so hard? Because it does change things. It absolutely does.
it does. And again, this is where, you can lead the horse to water and you can't make them drink. So I can make recommendations and say, listen, if you can commit to doing this 3, 4, 5 times a day, simple breath work exercises 2, 3 times a day, it will change your physiology. I can only keep encouraging and keep showing up and keep encouraging and holding that space. I can't make anybody do anything. They have to be ready and intentional and mindful that they want to change to actually commit to doing it. But if we can get if we can get that buy-in, magic happens.
I agree. It's magic, and yet it is definitely scientific in its nature. And as you have described what you do and how you do it, it just gives me this huge, like, sunshiny hope that just is like, it's just like flooding into this little podcast studio of mine. Like, there is hope. And I know that if we don't find a way to lead people back into hope, then nothing can get better. But when I hear you say these words and in a way that I'm like, this is no joke. This has got, the science behind it. Have you ever considered doing anything on Zoom with Whisper? The name of your, would you call it your business, your medical practice?
My practice.
What would I call that?
Yep, my practice.
Whisper.
My Whisper Health. Mm-hmm.
Help. Yeah, I love that. Because it is kind of a whisper inside of us waiting to be heard. We're trying to, how we tell our secrets to somebody. We whisper and we walk around in this very, and if you can just let the whisper come out. I love that that's the name of your health and healing practice. And at Whisper Health, do you have other people that you work with there?
I do. I have an administrative assistant that I rely on heavily, and I have 2 health coaches.
Oh, that's great.
Mhm.
Okay, amazing. And you're in Florida.
I am.
right?
I'm in
You're
Florida.
Orlando area?
I'm in South
Or-
Florida.
Okay, South
Yeah.
Florida.
In between West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale.
Yes. So when you refer out to therapists and you said trauma informed for sure, I'm wondering if we are getting to a point now because like I was talking about, running and needing a counselor and had no money and there was no insurance to help me. Like I couldn't get one on my insurance. That didn't exist yet.
Mhm.
I'm old. And so it's a long time ago. But now often you can access therapists, but can you find the right trauma-informed therapist that your medical insurance will take? And so I think as we get more and more astute and the realization that this kind of healing would revolutionize all the other parts, it would be the mental health, the physical health, as well as the spirit being healthy and vibrant and surviving is no longer what we want to do. We want to thrive. That's the whole point, is to thrive in our lives. So if they're looking for that additional team member that would be a trauma-informed therapist, how do you vet? Would you Do you have any tips on that? Like, you've just helped us, like, with some ideas of just to cope with, actual changing, and getting the nervous system by doing these simple things, but they actually are medicinal and in their doing of, and they're helping us move forward and heal from trauma. Where do you find that therapist? I find that really hard.
It can be tricky. I have been very fortunate to make contacts in my community. And I have a few people that I refer to frequently. And if an insurance isn't covered with one practitioner, we can try another. I often tell people to call their insurance carrier and find out, can you help me find a trauma-informed therapist? Help me locate this person in my area. And there's a lot of people that will do telehealth visits, so it doesn't have to be in your neighborhood. It can be in another state, right? So contacting
Right.
your insurance company to see how they can help you and guide you find those appropriate resources. And again, just like there's the Institute for Functional Medicine for functionally trained practitioners, I'm sure there's a trauma informed therapy organization that you could find you could put in a zip code and find practitioners in your area.
Okay. So that's good, just to see if in the area you can actually, there probably is, and I guess I should do some research on that to see if there is an somewhere
Mhm.
where you can do that very thing.
Absolutely.
Like put in trauma informed, or put in, trauma informed for even more specifically, sexual abuse survivors,
Right.
or, maybe there's more specifics than what I've actually researched or
Mhm.
found. So that's really good advice. So would you tell us a little bit more about, in coping with stress and knowing that the body, mind, and spirit are all connected? What would be a first, if you had to recommend a book so somebody could actually read a little bit more about this, just they want more information and then they can decide this is where I need to commit to this and find someone like you in my area. I want this because this is going to work. What book would they read, or what you were taking down notes of every book in that office with your daughter, and that's how you got into this.
Yeah.
Is there something out there that someone could read that has more information? And then tell us about your program that you're launching in 2024 as well, both those things.
So my two favorite books, um, the first one is really dense. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and I have it. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. So
very.
so I
The one book I found in my life that
yes,
actually made a difference, but
yes.
it was
It
dense,
is
like you
dense.
said.
It's very dense. I have it on my bookshelf. I recommend it all the time to people.
You can pull it out if you wanna pull it
I
out and
I would
show
I
those
would
who
have to
watch
find it.
YouTube. Oh, okay, it's alright.
I should have pulled it out to prepare, and I didn't. But that is an amazing resource.
Yeah, Bessel van der Kolk,
Yes,
I think is how you
yes,
say his name.
yes. And then the other person that I refer to frequently would be Dr. Stephen Porges. He's the one who's doing a lot of the research on polyvagal theory. And he has a
Okay.
protocol. It's called the Safe and Sound Protocol. That's one of those things that, people can look into. Google Safe and Sound Protocol and find a practitioner that is educated and certified in that. But Dr. Stephen Porges is the one that's putting out all the information on polyvagal theory. And he has a brand new book called Our Polyvagal World. And that's a much easier read than The Body Keeps the Score, but so incredibly informative.
Okay. That sounds great. Alright. And is this cutting edge research about the polyvagal connection to everything, and is this like the next place where we're gonna have this explosion of, guess what? We found, the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
We found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's a functional medicine practitioner. He's a medical doctor that practices now, and he's fully just focusing on trauma and polyvagal theory and how to help people rewire their brains and get them out of that trauma response. He's incredible.
Oh, this is exciting. Okay, we have a book club on we have a online community called Thrivivors,
Uh-huh.
and we do a book club. So we're putting that on the list. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now tell us a little bit more about the program that you're launching in this new year.
Yeah, we're very excited. So, my background is in dermatology, and I practiced dermatology for 23 years here locally. And before I got submersed in the functional and integrative medicine world, I was really noticing a lot of women that would come in with acne and facial hair growth, and they would be anxious and depressed and overweight and just overlooked in the medical system, to be very blunt. And
Yeah.
I started researching and learning more about polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it is the number one metabolic condition for females, and it's the number one driver for infertility. And it's really just now, again, gaining steam, and there's people that are the awareness has grown. But essentially, I have taken my functional medicine training and created a 12-week group online program to help women that have been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome that suffer with these symptoms to, again, just educate, inspire, and empower them to reclaim their health. And we're doing it, we're treating the whole person, the mind, the body, the spirit. We're talking about the foundation of health, the nutrition, how important exercise and movement is, how you manage your stress on a day-to-day basis, what you do to feed your passion and to feed your soul. How do you find joy? How often are you doing it? All of these foundational levels of health we're addressing in this online group program. And my goal was just to create a community of women that have like-minded desires and goals to overcome this number one endocrine metabolic disruption. And I'm not treating or curing. I'm educating them and inspiring them and empowering them to reclaim their own health. And I'm teaching them how to do that. And there is
Yeah.
advanced diagnostic testing that will happen within the program, and we're going to teach them what their results mean. And I can't wait to launch it because I think it's going to be it's going to move the needle.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So how would people find out more? Or it's online, so this is something that people could join and be a part
Mhm.
of. That would be amazing.
Yep. So
And what's it called? Does it have a name that they should look
it
for,
does.
or
It's
your
called
name?
the Get Your Sass Back program, and it's
Okay.
on Whispering Wisdom. So on Instagram, if they want to find us, it's Whispering Wisdom to You, the number two, the letter U. And we're
Okay.
just keeping in line with our whole whisper um, theme. When I
Yeah.
named my company back in 2018, names are very important to me. And when I found this type of medicine, I am a little bit sarcastic sometimes. And I'm so passionate about it that I really want to stand on the rooftops and scream, like, listen up, people. This is how we take back our health, right? And that's where the
Yeah.
name Whisper came to me. I was like, Whisper Health. That's my mission. I'm whispering for health.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. So we will definitely, I'm sure we have all of those little details that can be in our show notes
Yeah.
as well. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was an amazing conversation. Is there anything that you would like to say that has been left unsaid? I always like to ask the guests, like, what do you wish we would have talked about? Or, oh, Jan forgot to cover that, and I didn't get a chance to say this.
I don't think you forgot anything. I would love to circle back to one point, and that is
Okay.
that there's always hope. Well, there's always hope.
There's always hope. Oh, I'm such a big proponent of hope. And sometimes it's hard to find it,
Yeah.
but there is hope. And that to me is like why we need Kerry Jenkins and other functional medicine practitioners to step forward, because it is about the whole person,
Yeah.
the mind, body, spirit connection. And I cannot thank you enough. It's given me, like I said, a lot of sunshine in this podcast room and a lot of hope,
Good.
because I know that there are things that even I could begin to do and practice a little more often in order to, even feel more free from the stress of just life and past experiences. So Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for what you do in the world. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and it's always amazing to align with like-minded people who really have the desire to get the word out there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm so grateful that we were introduced.
Yeah.
It's just a miracle in some ways because for some people, they will have heard about these things for the very first time, and it will make a difference. It will definitely lead them, or at least give them hope and lead them hopefully to the perfect, practitioner in their area.
Mm,
So thanks again, Kerry.
absolutely.
We will say goodbye for now, but we might have to have you back. We might have to do a
All
follow-up
right.
because it's really great information. So just keep those notes like, oh, we should talk about this now. And oh, this is leading cutting edge over here. I love that. And I knew from your praises were sung quite loudly to me about how incredible you are and
Oh,
how much you have helped, you know, certain people.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
thank you very, very much.